Okay, can we do an infinite corridor?
Oh, no.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started. I'm Scott Lowe. I'm here with a fine panel today. I'm joined on my left, everyone. First, we have Phoummala Schmitt. Then we have Gabriel Chapman. We have Howard Marks. We have Marcus Puckett, and we have Tim Antonowicz. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
So, we're going to talk about hyper-converged infrastructure. Who's doing hyper-converged, just by a show of hands?
Oh, wow.
That's a lot, and that's kind of, from some survey work that we did, that's not too surprising. There's a lot of people adopting this technology. One of the things to bear in mind is we're going to be asking you questions today, too, and if you have questions you'd like to ask the panel, just raise your hand, and a fine gentleman will bring you a microphone so you can ask your question. We want to answer all of the questions that you may have around this sort of burgeoning technology.
Will that be one of the 9 fine Irishmen bringing us a microphone?
It may be, or it may be one of the horsemen.
Okay.
One of the two. So with that, we're going to get started with some general thoughts around hyperconvergence. And Marcus, can you talk to us a little about what you're seeing in the market as far as hyperconverged infrastructure goes?
And you just had to call me out first, huh? Okay.
I did.
So the project that I'm doing right now is a huge migration from like standard 3-tier deployment to a hyperconverged infrastructure, full SDDC with, software-defined networking, storage, automation, stuff like that. And I'm seeing a lot of the benefits from it personally with that regard. And I've seen a lot of the benefits that it really brings to the mid-market SMB as well in terms of like scaling down exactly what's needed, making things simpler for them, especially if they go the appliance routes and things of that nature, making their lives easier.
I have a question on that. So is it simpler for the technologist or is it simpler for the business and the infrastructure?
So for the technologist, and that allows them to make better DR, have better uptime, stuff like that, so it becomes easier for the business as well.
Would you say that it's, revenue generating class 1 applications that are being placed on this, or is this kind of the general lights, keeping lights on, kind of tier 2 apps, things that aren't going to, like if they go down, oh shit, we're done?
So the project that I'm doing right now is like a huge customer-facing e-commerce application. On top of that, it's also the back-end infrastructure is getting put on it, and it's very high uptime requirements. We can tolerate like 10 minutes of downtime before we have humongous repercussions.
So the environment prior to that, was it a solo environment where you had your storage team, your networking team, and your server team?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
How do they deal with that?
How are they dealing?
Converging together.
Coming together?
Yeah.
So all of it was handled by the company that I work for, Verizon. Their professional services team was who handled all of that. And so they had like a small team that was dedicated to the customer, and they would have to go to the other parts of the professional services division to discuss, making changes, how to get changes done.
Is this
very highly siloed.
I guess the impact is, you have your professional service teams coming in deploying it, but when you guys leave,
We don't leave.
Who does day 2?
Yeah, who does day 3, day 4? Do
We
the teams work together, or they're fighting? Who does what? And if there's a problem, who's going to fix what? Who's going to check the network? Is it the servers team, or is it the storage team, or is it the networking team, or does everybody just raise their hand and go, well, screw that?
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, that point. But so for us specifically, we don't leave. We have like a 3-year, or my contract is a 3-year contract dedicated specifically to the customer. I only work on them. I don't even know who the other customers we have.
So
are,
this is Verizon as a professional services team.
This is not Verizon internal.
Right. The end customer is not Verizon.
No.
Okay.
The Verizon Enterprise Services side of the house, not the Verizon Wireless.
Okay. So it's an outsourced deal.
Right. Yeah.
In terms of the products, I guess, that you chose, or are you guys the ones that chose to evaluate a specific set of products, or was there one that you came in to pitch and to deliver on? in terms of, I guess, is it a hodgepodge of different software-defined constructs on a standard white box, or is it an appliance model?
So we're not doing the appliance model. We have, well, they have a hodgepodge actually. So we have, they're using Nutanix for their VDI. We're using vSAN for the tier 0, tier 1 applications, along with Dev, QA, Sandbox, et cetera. And vSAN was specifically pitched. It was not like a bake-off or anything like that. They just pitched this whole SDDC, all VMware, all bought into the rah hail corporate kind of deal there.
Sounds like professional services.
Are there any end users in the audience that have gone all in on hyper-converged infrastructure? Anybody? You have? Can you bring him a mic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how. Yeah.
Never mind.
It's your turn to get grilled now.
Okay.
I'd like
Anybody
to know
else?
how you experienced it.
Oh, wait, there's
because-
another gentleman over here.
I want to start with how big is the environment?
Yeah.
How many hosts?
So we have currently right now 2 vBlocks. So UCS vBlocks, and that has about 2 petabytes worth of data, probably 110 hosts for 2 environments that we have. So it's a pretty big. We use more data than we do the compute, but it's a pretty big environment.
So now that's a CI play,
Right.
right? Is it an HCI play? Are you looking at VxRail? Are you looking at Nutanix?
We actually have a VxRail in there as well for one of our BCP locations, and then we have a Vmax as well. Which we got.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So give the mic to the other guy.
Can you?
You bought the mainframe
and then we'll
of
take it to the
storage.
gentleman in the
Oh,
green shirt.
So the first question we do have for you is, when you say all in, what do you mean by all in?
Basically, if you replaced all of your existing servers and storage with hyper-converged
Sweep the floor with
infrastructure,
HCI.
or are you in the process?
We're in the process.
And
okay?
so, what was
on.
why did you decide to go that route, and what are you starting to see as benefits, or what are you anticipating as benefits?
So first, we're Nutanix. We have about 28 nodes, something like that. 28 nodes,
That's a lot of
and we're
Big.
What are you running on it?
we're on Dell.
I mean,
We're running on Hope and a Prayer.
Is it your primary application? Is it your primary?
So we plan on moving our primary mission critical apps over
Okay.
to Nutanix and VMware, of course, is the hypervisor. So we're on a Vmax environment right now. Our VMware environment will move. We're going to continue with Vmax for other applications.
The ones that pay the bills, right?
Well, the VMs we're moving over, they pay the bills.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, my experience as somebody who came to HCI early and then kind of left it a little bit, and still go out and talk and discuss these things, is traditionally what I'm seeing is that sub 12 to, that 10 to 12 host environment with sub 500 virtual machines. HCI is a great fit for those orgs that aren't going to go public cloud at some point down the road, right? Because I think that there's two divergence there, right? There's organizations, their developers are spinning up applications, or they're spinning up virtual machines or instances. They can go to Amazon, swipe their credit card, and boom. And there's a skill set involved in that some orgs have and some don't. Then there's people who want to keep their data on site, on premises, and therefore an HCI solution looks really attractive if they've had kind of siloed infrastructure over the period of time, because the ROI on that can kind of start to look really attractive, especially if they have multiple locations and they're going to take advantage of the DR capabilities in some of these HCI solutions. What I do not see across the board are very large implementations. And by very large, I mean multiple hundreds of HCI-based solutions being deployed. You do see that in some cloud companies, some cloud delivery companies or hosting organizations, but I wouldn't call it a traditional HCI thing, because they were doing HCI long before everyone else was.
Well, and are they doing HCI, or are they disaggregating it?
Essentially, what they're trying to do is if you go to we'll take an OpenStack implementation, for instance. I'm going to take Ceph and I'm going to put it on with the OpenStack complement, and I can bake all that inside an individual unit, where I can take economies of scale and push that out, right? The same thing you would do or see in a Hadoop environment or something similar, right? Yeah. Large distributed systems. Now, granted, to say that I personally think HCI is an awesome fit for those small organizations with 3 to 5 man IT teams, where they may not have robust skill sets. I mean, if if you go back to the days of Celeron and things like that, where storage was kind of a pain in the ass, it was like 180 process movement to do a volume.
Yeah,
and
that's...
you go to HCI and it's right-click, create storage. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's I think the point, and I think the point many of us are missing is that storage has gotten easy to use just as fast as HCI has made storage easy to use. And that if you get a tin tree or any system that supports vVols properly, the day-to-day operations of that storage and the day-to-day operations of vSAN are exactly the same because it's the same SPBM console. And so I see people going, I'm going to get 100 nodes of Nutanix, which will cost 50% more than that same 100 servers and an all-flash solution from Pure or SolidFire that with vVols will be just as easy to run because they're comparing new HCI to rusty old vMax and how hard that was to run. Yeah. And very rarely do people compare shiny new HCI to shiny new storage.
I mean, I tweeted out the other day, I thought that HCI is the EpiPen of the data center, right? Because ultimately what you have is $7 worth of medicine in an auto injector. That's a delivery mechanism, that's a packaging exercise, and it's marketing and additional value add on top of it. It may be not that extreme, but the reality is if I want a turnkey solution that I can plug in and run with, it's very attractive, right? The reality is, though, you're paying a significant amount of money for that day one experience to turn things on and get them up and running, and a little bit extra for kind of ease of use for, I wouldn't call it low sophistication environments, but, organizations that maybe you're deploying 5 or 10 virtual machines a week or a month or, maybe 50 in a year.
I've got something to add to that.
It depends. It depends on where you're at and what you're looking for. You could do small to mid, but we're seeing more and more larger organizations moving to hyper-converged infrastructure.
Yeah.
Well, or all flash, because it's just as cheap just to go to flash.
I mean, you can do the same thing with hyper-converged now, but one of the things I think to keep in mind is when we see this on the storage side too, but on the hyper-converged side, more and more vendors in the market are wrapping additional services into their product. For example, disaster recovery as a service. We see all over the place, but specifically, I've talked to both Scale and SimpliVity about it in the last couple of weeks. They're both doing disaster recovery as a service plays right in the same console where they're doing everything else. So as you start to look at the services you can potentially wrap around it, it becomes easier to do it when it's sort of a Swiss Army knife.
If we're talking about hyper-converged as vSAN, where we've added storage to the compute node and you don't need dedicated storage.
Correct. That's exactly what we're talking about.
That's the simplest case, and there's good place for it in the really small because nobody's ever made a good $20,000 disk array. Don't start with me. But as you start integrating more services like SimpliVity does, where it's, and we back you up to S3 automatically. And now you can use that backed up to S3 automatically as DR as a service. Now there's huge value beyond just, I didn't have to buy storage and I don't have to deal with the storage guy who's old and fat and a pain in the ass. And where's the sparkly tie?
It becomes a business case and not an infrastructure or hardware.
Well, it becomes more than just packaging. It becomes more than just another way to provide the service, the storage.
If you take the traditional IT stack, right? We have servers, we have switches, we have backup appliances, storage arrays, WAN gateways, all that stuff. If you can realize the cost benefit of eradicating all of those pieces, as well as backup software and replication software, et cetera, then the ROI on HCI becomes very, very attractive.
Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to do HCI that integrates the SDN controller.
Right, because that's hard, right?
Well, if you look at like Coho Data, who integrates the SDN controller into the storage.
Cloudistics.
What's that?
Cloudistics.
Cloudistics does that? That now we're going, oh, look, we're integrating all 3 stacks, and there's one console.
You have a full stack implementation, not just a 2-stack.
And I don't need, not only do I not need a storage guy, I don't need a network guy either. That starts looking really attractive.
Well, you're still going to need a network guy. I mean, for now. I mean, when we're talking about bringing the SDN controller into the environment, we're talking about the data center and the systems environment. We're not seeing it quite yet all the way to the edge. So
I mean, I still need a firewall, and let's
go to the audience for a second. We have a gentleman who's been very patiently for us to actually shut up. And so you're doing something with hyper-converged. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we went all in on Nutanix, 26 nodes total.
How many virtual machines?
500.
Who said 500 or more was, okay, there you go.
I am concerned that you guys keep saying it's more expensive than traditional, which wasn't our case at all.
And
I have to agree
honestly,
with
if
you,
you
'cause
look
we've
at
saved a
list
ton
price,
of money
if you look at
doing
list price, it
HCI.
probably is.
Yes,
But if you look at
list price. All right, so
everybody's list price is ridiculous, right?
Yeah, but I've just completed an analysis for a vendor whose color is orange, and as close as you can make the configurations, and giving Nutanix a 60% discount and the orange guys a 50% discount, which is what the resellers of both of them tell me are reasonable. The orange solution with Dell servers is still 30% cheaper.
I will attest to that, too.
Yeah.
All flash was actually cheaper for me to migrate Exchange to than it was to any other storage type.
Now that's not to say that this is an architectural problem. This is just Nutanix charges a lot for what they do.
Right. But there's also a concept of getting what you
if you
pay
look
for.
at hyper-converged, if you look at hyper-converged as just servers and storage and nothing else, that's where your problem is.
Absolutely.
Because you're just not going to beat that on a price
Right,
model.
and that-
However,
and that's why
the
deeper
difference
integration-
is you have to find other ways to get a return on investment there. If you can package more services where you're going to actually reduce your backups, reduce your man hours and all that, and pull that
Agreed,
together,
but too many of
that
today's
makes a big
HCI
difference.
solutions don't just
That's right, most
deliver-
of them don't.
All they deliver
that's what I'm
is
saying,
compute and
hardware's
storage
hardware.
and, and
It's gonna
ease
work.
of use.
So, I mean, the reality is what HCI will become is a commodity software stack on commodity hardware, right? That's ultimately, no one can go to market with an all software play. We've seen a lot of companies try to do that, and it struggles because hardware compatibility lists are hard and complex. I mean, you think about how long it's taken VMware to get to the point where they're at with the breadth of offering from the hardware spec. If I'm a Nutanix or SimpliVity or a Max or some of these others, you know what? It's hard for me to just go sell the software. I have to go to market with an appliance because that route to market, A, gets me top line revenue that kind of generates a lot more buzz and a lot more return on our investment and gets more attraction to the VCs.
And frankly,
ultimately,
the market won't let you charge enough for it.
Right, and ultimately you are going to have to pivot to some kind of software stack that you're selling and not a box that you're selling. Because the box will get you so far, it may get you to IPO, it may get you acquired, but ultimately this is a commodity play across the board. When you look at it too, though, is for those orgs that do go all in, I think one thing that people don't pay attention to is the overhead involved in just turning the boxes on. Right? Some of the systems that are out there today, you're going to take 30% off the top of memory, processor, storage, just to get the thing deployed. And at the end of the day, you have to make that analysis and that judgment as well. It's like, all right, I can go buy UCS or Dell servers or HP servers and get the full complement of that hardware and utilize all of those resources towards whatever workloads I'm running and just have the hypervisor layer and do a little extra physical work on my own to get that spun up and running. And I'm not taking resources away, which at scale starts to look really bad. If I'm deploying 100 nodes of something and I have to take 33% off the top of the overhead, I'm not getting a whole lot of value in there just to turn the boxes on and keep things running, because normally I'm an organization that has a lot more people that are dedicated to delivering those services. And people are sunk cost, and I don't care what any HCI vendor says, no organization is going to fire a bunch of people because we made the box simple to turn on.
No, that's true, and that's one of the points I was going to make. If you look at this from a TCO perspective, a lot of times you see vendors say, you're going to save this many millions of dollars, and that might be on paper.
Yeah, but that's based on every user
in reality,
saved 5 seconds out of every hour, and
Exactly.
we added that up. But if you save 5 seconds, you don't monetize that, you go have a cigarette.
If you start to look at it more broadly, like Tim was alluding to, beyond just simply putting together servers and storage, the TCO numbers start to make a little bit more sense. Tim, tell us more.
Tell us
whatever
more.
you want to talk
Wonderful.
about.
Full disclosure, I work for SimpliVity, so I see hyperconvergence every day. If you're looking at TCO from a hyperconvergence standpoint, like I said, the servers are more expensive. The storage, the disks are more expensive. You're not going to make money by buying hyperconvergence to replace servers and storage. Where you're going to get it is finding value that you're going to find elsewhere. Get rid of your backups because you find a product that integrates backups, does replication better. You may not need a WAN accelerator to handle a high load of replication, something like that. And then you also wind up with soft costs. You're not going to fire 3 people, but you might be able to redirect them from being a backup exec or backup admin, and all of a sudden he's doing development work that's actually going to take projects off of the whiteboard.
Okay, let's be real. No one who's a tape monkey is going to develop anything.
No, but I mean, if you give somebody something better to do than backups,
anything's better to do than backups.
Oh God, yes.
You could be an email administrator.
Hey. Don't go there.
I heard Office 365's hiring.
Yeah, well.
Phoummala, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing and your thoughts on general hyper-converged?
I'm currently a technical team lead for a private insurance company. I run their messaging UC platform, but I also have a background in storage and virtualization. So my thoughts on hyper-converged. Right now, I just think with large enterprises that have siloed departments, it's hard to wrap around that concept because you've got these individual departments. It's political. It's social. It's not. It's a culture. It's not all about just okay. It's not about the technology. It's about changing people's thoughts, how they think, how they work, and integrating that in. And sometimes that's really difficult when you've been working like this for 30 years. You've got individual departments, and you come in and you say, "Hey, we're gonna throw this new appliance, and you're not gonna do the job the way you normally do it. You're
you
gonna
can
do
take
something
that
else."
fiber channel out of my cold, dead hands.
Hey, our storage guy loves his vMaxes. We've got
We
like
actually
100
still
reviews.
use
He
them.
loves them, and do you think he
every
really
one
wants
of
to
your
give that up?
meetings- Every one of your meetings is the battle of the 5 armies, right?
Oh yeah, everyone's like, you can't take that. No, you can't take that, and it's a struggle. And I think it's a culture that you have to change, and it's slowly getting into the enterprises, but it's going to take some more time because old folks like you don't want to give up. Just saying.
Howard, hug your server for warmth. Winter is coming.
Don't break your hip, Howard.
What? I'm
the stone tablet days where you had to etch them.
Hey, those stone tablets will hold that data for 2,000 years.
That's right.
There's no
You
bit.
can't beat stone tablets for retention.
There's no bit rot in the stone tablet.
Minor problems. I'm convinced that some portion of the hyperconverged sales are just completely politically driven.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
That the virtualization guys have been so tired of dealing with the old fat guys with sparkly ties that they decided to go buy vSAN and cut them right out of the whole party.
But that's
I can
just
tell you
it.
1,000%
Then
that that's what
there's this
happened for
war.
us.
Then there's
Yeah.
there's a civil war in these departments. I've seen it happen.
Hyperconvergence is the B-52 in the war between the VMware guys and the storage guys. It's like, we're going to carpet bomb you and just put that vMax out of business.
But the reality is, if you look at a lot of those organizations, vMax may have been overkill to begin with, and they just had this chubby for 5 nines, right? Let's do 5 nines at the storage, no matter the fact that everything else in the data center is 2 nines.
Yeah, my favorite is
I want 5 nines.
My favorite. I was a consultant in New York for 35 years, and my favorite is walking into a company to do a DR plan, and you go, "What are your TCO and PTO?" And they go, 0 and 0. And so I say, okay, so on January 17th, we had a foot of snow. Did you open the office or did you tell people to stay home? Oh, we told people to stay home. Yeah, so your RTO is 0, huh? You can't afford any downtime, huh? It snowed and you sent people home. Reevaluate your objectives. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, and also...
And so those are the guys who have the vMax because somebody convinced them they needed uptime.
kind of pivot the conversation to not just, because we talked about the infrastructure guys, and when I go to a business conversation, they're like, who are you and why are you here? And I'm usually the one that says, oh, because you engaged some Simplicity or Nutanix or vSAN guy to come in with an appliance because you were tired of waiting on infrastructure, just like cloud. So how is HCI, can you guys talk about how HCI is coming into the infrastructure, not just through the infrastructure door, virtualization guy, but through the application teams themselves?
Marcus.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the biggest drivers for us, not just the fact that it saved us an obscene amount of money compared with getting a bunch of EMC arrays, was that we're using vRealize automation to just like turn on their sandbox and dev environments. So the tight integration with all of that was a huge sell for them, and especially we were doing like a training class, and we had a lot of the developers for the application that our customer uses in the class with us, and they were like, oh, so you can just click the button and we got it. And whereas before it took like weeks to months to get an environment spun up, and now, and especially this is really big for us because we're a professional services and we own all of their infrastructure. They don't touch any of it. It's all us. They ask for things and we give it to them. And so now they're going to ask us for things, and we'll, I'm sure that they'll probably say it's going to take a week, and we just go click a button and we tell them in a week, all right, it's been there for a couple of days.
No, you tell them it's going to take a week, and then in 2 days you tell them it's ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Set expectations, exceed
That's the Scotch
expectations.
principle.
Yes.
Go ahead. Take that question, Tim. Who else has a question? Yeah, take the mic over to him.
Don't take the mic over to him.
Tim, you want to answer? You want to talk?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the problem
In a
speaking a room where
hyper-converged
you know
way.
everybody.
John
We have
Nicholson.
two different sales.
Hold on.
You get VMware guys who want the infrastructure to make their lives easier. From a business perspective, you're hitting the C-levels or VPs or whatever by bringing a story that says, I can deliver virtual machines for less money per VM than you can do in the cloud, or you can do yourself on your third-party applications or whatever. And we actually, we come and say, it takes X amount of dollars to support a VM. I think it's like $6,000 per VM per year or something like that. I think Forrester or somebody did a study.
In
average?
If it's Forrester, it's only off by a factor of 2.
Right, or whatever. But
Gartner's off by 4.
But if we can deliver VMs in a hyper-converged infrastructure for less money per workload across your infrastructure, the money guys get it. I can afford more VMs, or it takes less to support those and manage them. That's how you bring a total cost.
Yeah,
and
that
make the
unit of
argument from
consumption
the front end.
is a good metric, and you don't see a lot of the HCI guys really coming out saying, because they could take, the standard Amazon, instances or, OpenStack flavors and kind of do modeling around that. You don't see that necessarily so much in their customer-facing documentation, except for specific siloed workloads. Like, we can do that consistently with VDI because it's all the same box or all the same virtual machine, and we can go out there. But invariably, you get into organizations where all of a sudden some other thing comes in and completely perverts that cost per VM model, because invariably that's what's going to happen.
All right, we got a question from the audience.
John Nicholson. So have we reached peak HCI vendor? Like peak oil? Like have we reached
38 of them.
We've started losing them.
Yes.
So I think we're at a level point, and that the bloodbath is 6 to 12 months away.
Yeah, there's that there are like 3 or 4 that are legit, and then there's a bunch of people that are just kind of like glomming onto it, and then there are some that say they have an HCI solution that no one's ever seen in the wild, or maybe they sold $1 million of it globally. The reality is we're seeing this across the board. But for 1 or 2 other companies that are out there today, you're not going to see any more pure play infrastructure IPOs or exits, right? That's just, we can all see what the HCI vendor's done. Unless somebody comes out with HCI 2.0 or 3.0 and completely creates a whole new level of value add that nobody else has done yet, and kind of does that quickly and ramps up and learns the lessons from all the other ones that have kind of, first mover advantage is definitely real and legit, but you have to be able to capitalize on it. And so what we're seeing now is, you're going to see Nutanix attempt to do their IPO. You're going to see SimpliVity probably attempt to do an IPO. And obviously vSAN has, they have the backing of VMware and all that support there. But everybody else.
You don't think Cisco's going to finish the SpringPath acquisition?
I think this. So you could say Cisco. I'm going to, HP apparently has some stuff too. I don't know if anyone's seen one. Anybody here buy an Evo rail? No, they did.
Hey,
okay.
he did say buy. The ones you got for free don't count.
All right, we've got a question from the audience.
I just want to comment real quick. I don't think we've reached peak HCI. I mean, storage vendors are still appearing, and I mean, we've had this for 25 years. So I absolutely don't think that we've reached peak. We're going to see them come and go, just like we do storage companies, but we've definitely, I think we're just starting, right? And Nutanix had the early lead, but people will figure out what Nutanix isn't doing right, and what vSAN isn't doing right, what SimpliVity is not doing right, and iterate on that.
Yeah, so that brings up a good question.
The barriers to entry have gotten much higher.
Howard, let me ask this question we have on our cheat sheet here.
Okay.
Which is, we've got this hyper prefix and hyper-converged. What's next? Phoummala, do you want to talk about your thoughts about what's next with hyper-converged infrastructure, if anything? Ludicrous.
Ultra becomes before ludicrous.
Hyper, mega, disruptive, I don't know.
Hey, you guys want to make up a marketing term today just for fun?
Composable infrastructure.
Yeah,
composable infrastructure.
Automated.
Transformers. It's just going to be transformers.
Let's just pick a word out of the dictionary, because I think at this point you can pick up any word and throw it on top of.
Not even just the word, but the technology itself.
Poughkeepsie.
I've been to Poughkeepsie.
More automated.
Yes.
Artisanal.
There we go.
That's what we need, artisanal computing. Right? We have paddle and
Howard. I think automation is going to be a big one. I know I'm in the customer world, and it's all about how can we automate this? That seems to be the word in every single meeting I've been sitting in for the past year. How do we automate this? How do we make this simpler for our engineers? I don't want you to run your script and it's just automate. I'm about to be automated to death
There's
now.
There's no book called The Joy of Menial Tasks. So if I have to do something more than once, I'm going to automate it or orchestrate it or do something of that nature, right?
Everything needs to be automated, even myself. If you can automate me, that'd be great.
If I have to do it more than one time, I should probably write something to do it for me. And I think that's the value that the HCI vendors are probably going to have to pivot to is as they create that self-service portal, right? That is the turnkey experience for download or provision my virtual machine or if I integrate with Puppet or Chef or Ansible or any of those tools like that, or even if they build their own front-end framework that does the provisioning aspects to give that cloud or that that Amazon on-premises experience. That's where the real value I think the HCI vendors can really bring to the table, because they control all the back-end infrastructure and it's their full stack that they're playing with. And the more things that they can do for you to make that just a turnkey solution that you can in turn provide back the resources to your organization, that's where the value is really going to come in. And when they start to really kind of solve that problem, the drop-down menu for deployment and abstract away all the complexity on the back end, that's when I think it'll start to take off a little bit more. What they do have to realize, though, is that scaling to 20 nodes, most things can scale to 20 nodes. You scale to 200, you scale to 2,000, that's where physics and weird shit starts to happen.
Distributed systems are hard.
Very hard. And that's why you only have 4 or 5 companies that have really done it properly. And they all start with Google, Microsoft, and Amazon.
Howard, briefly tell us what you think is next with a world of hyper-converged.
Well, I agree that automation and orchestration are part of it, but I think a bigger part or a more immediate part is going to be deconstruction or disaggregation. That a CPU cycle on a vSphere host costs 3 times as much as a CPU cycle on a bare metal server, because you have to pay for vSphere and Windows and all the other software that's on there. So even if we're using exactly the same software, at some point in scale, having 10 compute servers and 6 dedicated storage servers, all DL380s, and the storage servers run the same software I could run at a VM, starts to make a lot more sense, because the CPU cycles the storage software consumes are the cheap bare metal storage cycles, not the expensive virtualized cycles. Because you're never going to vMotion the virtual machine that provides storage services. So the advantage of being on a platform that lets you do vMotion is 0.
Same thing for, if you start to look at the container ecosystem, there are a couple players out there that are focusing on HCI-based solutions that will deliver containers.
Yeah, I get storage for containers.
Right.
I've talked to 4 vendors who've tried to pitch me that I should run storage in containers, And I do not get why that would be a good idea.
All right, we're going to go on to another
understand
question
it
from
right
our
now.
friend Josh. Go ahead.
Oh no, Atwell's got the mic.
I don't think it's on.
Of course it's muted. I think that was a play.
Points to the sound guy for screwing with Atwell.
I'm kind of confused by that, though. I guess.
I'm holding up a finger, and I'll let you guess which one it is. Choose your own adventure. Okay, so one thing that keeps ringing in my mind as we're talking is we're talking about solving the same old problems in the same old ways, but with different flavors. At what point do you think, and what kind of impact do you think AI will have in infrastructure management and the delivery of applications?
Tim.
AI is an
Artificial intelligence, yes. Well, I was going to go with augmented reality, but nobody really wants a Pokemon on top of their HCI box.
And that starts with an R, too.
Well, especially not in Colorado.
Okay, I may be wrong on that. I was too forward thinking.
When you get to a point where you actually have artificial intelligence and it's taking care of everything, it's going to figure it out on its own, so we won't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. Do you really want that to happen?
We can have the Star Trek episode. We're all just hanging out, eating
No, I think Josh.
whittling wood.
None of us want Skynet, but we do want machine learning to the point where DRS and storage DRS can rearrange your workloads because they know you're doing the end of month tomorrow.
But isn't that what Skynet started out with? Something like it started out with the basic.
Never connect the computers and the nuclear launch codes.
Somebody will. Come on here.
Trump will do that.
I wasn't supposed to do that?
Right.
No, two guys, keys.
I mean, I think you get to a certain point where it's like the decisions that a human can make and the decisions that the machines can make, and they can continue to gather information and input over a period of time. And that's the concepts around AI and machine learning, is learning over a period of time based on decisions and things that are happening and applying that knowledge to your environment.
And those of us who are old storage guys have to admit that we've got AI today in the storage array.
Yeah.
Every storage array today is smarter than every storage guy today at figuring out where data placement goes. That skill of I can give you this many IOPS from playing with this many spindles and screwing with the cache in the vMax, those skills are obsolete. You should give that stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, what are the three equations I have to solve for storage today? How big does it need to be? How fast does it need to be? Who can access it, right? Because I don't need to, the DBA should never be coming to you and say, well, I need 6 disks of 15K RAID 10 because that's what the Oracle tells me. I'm like, I say, how many IOPS do you need? That's what you need to know. And how big does it need to be? And we've done that, right? But expanding that to a lot of other parts inside the data center is a little hard. And I think, the one thing the HCI vendors have totally not focused nearly enough time on is the networking stack and the networking intelligence.
Yeah, I never understood why.
And bringing software-defined networking integrated into it, primarily because that battle is still shaking out. It's not just NSX and ACI. It's Contrail, it's OpenFlow, it's a whole host of companies that most of us in the VM world don't even comprehend because it's not part of our day in, day out.
That's next. That's honestly, I think, as I look at hyper-converged, I think that's the next. That's the next phase of hyper-converged infrastructure, is bringing that into play.
Network converged infrastructure.
Give the microphone to Tom.
Yeah,
whether he wants to.
Did he even raise his
hand? I think that's going to be a tough one because they don't want to give that up.
Well, nobody wants to give up anything. Everybody likes to keep,
Yeah,
but I'm going to hug my server, I'm going to hug my storage, I'm going to hug my
Just
switch.
like the storage guys have to give up performance tuning, the network guys eventually have to give up big parts of the data center network.
Hear that?
Yeah.
So Tom, when can we shut Cisco down?
Wow, that was a hell of a lead-in, Scott. Thanks.
I mean, we'll leave you the campus network and the wireless.
I don't do wireless. That's crazy.
It's crazy talk.
Those people are nuts. When it gets bridged into my network, I start caring about it. You guys are absolutely right, and this is the thing that networking people have been asking since I've been doing it for at least 4 years. Every time I see a new hyper-converged, all-in-one solution, I always ask them, okay, where's the network card? How many ports is it? How big is it? What's controlling it? And usually this is the response that I get.
Plug it into the top of the rack.
Yeah.
Give me any commodity 10 gig connection and I'm good to go.
But I think
Pamphlet
that's the
says it
problem.
only needs 2 Ethernet adapters. That's what the pamphlet says.
Every single HCI deployment, the only issue you run into is the network, because everybody's network is different.
Everybody's network is crap.
That is starting to change.
There is a performance limitation in hyper-converged, because if you're writing across multiple nodes for every single write, you're killing that network over and over. Eventually, you're going to saturate that 10 gig backplane in between nodes unless you're writing fully locally.
And the problem with that is that right now we're fighting a titanic battle in the network infrastructure of how cheap can we make that top of rack switch.
Yeah.
And right now, the cheapest that I can make it is a Trident 2 box, which everyone in this room is running a Trident 2. I promise you, your network vendor is lying to you.
It's all merchant silicon.
Until we get to Tomahawk, which is 25/100, we are not going to see a huge performance increase in striping across hyper-converged boxes. The problem is that as soon as we increase the lanes on the highway, the UPS truck drivers get faster, and everyone's like, oh, UPS has done so much to increase their ability to transfer data back and forth. No, we made the highways bigger.
I mean, I think also the reality is, though, is let's be honest. Not many not many VMware hosts, ESXi hosts, or even KVM, or whatever your hypervisor flavor is. How many people here have a host that's doing 10,000 IOPS consistently, right? Well, you're different.
Well, come on.
I mean, the reality is most of us, if you go and look, it's 1,500 to 2,000 IOPS per host. You think about it, you get more resources in that HCI box, and you can really usually tap.
Well, I asked the guys at Nimble and at Cloud Physics who have analytics data. In a cluster of 1,000 VMs, how many IOPS the average VM consumed?
47.
It's 11.
85.
I cheated. 85.
Right.
Yes, you did.
85.
Right.
But
less than 100.
It is under 100 at the 95th percentile. And so
But
we
my array
worry
can do a
about
billion
storage.
IOPS.
We
How do
worry
we hook those
about
up?
a billion IOPS, way too much.
Yeah.
Just like we worry about SSD write endurance, way too much.
And that's where it gets into being, getting more, I guess, utility out of what you are deploying, and being able to guarantee performance and segment workloads, and just instead of doing this blunt trauma, blunt force action. Yes, every box can do 50,000 IOPS. That's awesome, right? But it doesn't do you a lot of good if one workload decides to go wonky, because almost everybody has some kind of storage performance issue in their data center. And it's not because the back-end storage isn't capable of doing the number. It's the fact that the back-end storage can't delineate from one workload from the other and intelligently determine which one gets more performance over the other one.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
audience.
that's actually the point about the network.
For the audience, who else has questions I'd like to ask the panel while we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 really smart, 4 smart people. I won't tell you which one. And a nice tie. Other questions? So who's thinking about doing hyperconverged infrastructure, considering it?
Awesome for the home lab.
So, wait, put your hand up again.
No kidding.
For the home lab.
This guy in the purple shirt, he needs the mic.
Oh, Mr. Wood.
Bring Julian the
Which one's
microphone.
the
I don't
purple
understand
shirt?
this language.
It's the Queen's English.
What, us English?
Me English?
You have
All right,
trouble
so
with us
tell
English?
us a little bit about what you're looking at, why you're looking at it, where you are in the process.
Well, we're looking at hyper-converged literally just from a simplicity point of view. Big siloed organization, storage teams don't talk to other kinds of teams. There's an internal team that interfaces with multiple external vendors for storage via an outsourced company. So, you can just imagine how long it takes anything to get done.
Does not sound like fun, Julian.
It isn't. It isn't. And hyper-converged, the simplicity just wins out. And in evaluating hyper-converged, I honestly think that for probably 75 to 80% of most workloads, why wouldn't you just keep it simple? We've loved HP Blade servers for years and used that kind of thing. But you're thinking, you've got that to manage, plus your virtual connect, plus your top rack switches. You're then segregating your storage traffic with your other kind of stuff. All that goes away. So literally from a simplicity point of view, and then avoiding some crappy enterprise silos.
It's the next element of convergence, right? You know,
Yeah.
As we consolidated multiple disparate physical boxes into virtualized infrastructure, it's taking it one step further.
And certainly, if you dial the politics in, HCI is definitely simpler.
Yeah.
From a technical point of view, I can argue it either way.
Well, the end state is simpler, but whenever you're like trying to get from where you're at with all those silos and break down those walls, oof, yeah, it's.
And it becomes like the Borg, right? You know, when I worked at SimpliVity, I would pitch it as like, hey, you will be assimilated at some point or another in the course of the next 10-year period. You will probably move towards this kind of consolidated method of delivery.
You are no longer Locutus.
All right, we have another question from the
Hyperconverged is
audience.
cutting the Gordian knot.
So
It's
while
just
we're
making it
handing
easy.
over the mic, I do a lot of speaking engagements. One of the things I always ask audiences is, how many of you work in a siloed infrastructure? So how many of you work in a siloed organization? How many of you like that? Oh, come on. You really, really don't like that.
Yeah,
See,
that's right.
In the last 2 years, I've asked that question about 30 times and only had one hand ever go up. And it's for the reasons that Howard just mentioned, the
Layer 8
politics,
issues.
the red tape, the BS that goes on with the turf wars.
Yeah, so I actually have a question related to that.
Yeah.
Because I see people buying dedicated infrastructure for VDI and creating application silos.
Yeah.
And, you know, are application silos any better or different than function silos?
No, they're not.
Because the VDI guys are hugging that Nutanix cluster and, you know, they're not giving it up just like the storage guys hug the vMax. Yeah. So I think we have to pay a lot of attention and make sure that we're not tearing down one silo to build a new silo.
Correct.
And tearing that silo down so that we can all be one big happy team, which is what we really want to do.
I mean, ultimately, I think what we're trying to get is, I just want to use resource. I have a pool of resources. I want to consume them.
Well, if I'm
I don't wanna
outside
give it to
IT, I
you.
want
They're all
IT to look
mine.
like AWS.
I'm not sharing my
That's why
flash
we're all
storage
pointed.
with nobody else.
Okay, we have a question from the fine gentleman in blue.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo on what Julian was saying, really, because I deal with a lot of customers deciding, okay, they want to go public cloud today. You know, every app is being evaluated for public cloud first now in a lot of very large organizations, and I certainly don't see that 12 nodes or under on Nutanix, not just Nutanix, others as well. They're looking at their data center to scale massively, and people are definitely picking up Nutanix, VxRail, all these other technologies that are out there. And the piece I'm not really hearing, I still hear the same old argument here of it's better to do rack mount with storage or converged or hyper-converged when the value is at the app stack, and someone kind of hit on it there. So I guess, to Josh's question also, we do a lot now around APIs and self-healing cloud, and that means self-healing data center as well. Where do you guys see that whole area going with APIs, and is VMware a problem too, because the hypervisors?
Tim, let's start with Tim, then we'll have Phoummala follow on to that.
Well, fully, we want to embrace APIs. We want to embrace automation, and the more we can bring that to you as consumers, that's what we want. That's why we're building it. We're leveraging our APIs at SimpliVity, and several of the others are working there as well. And it's enabling people to leverage those to do that functionality and make that automation happen on the back end, and that's where we're helping drive cost down. Essentially, automate it and make it happen easier and more consistent, and that's what you really want.
I think
let's have Phoummala answer the question.
Oh, I love it. The more the merrier. I mean, as a customer, if there's more integration, more APIs, that's going to make my director a lot happier.
If I'm an organization that's building next generation apps, the first thing I'm going to be interested in is the API stack that I can integrate with, because if it's 7 lines of code to do what used to take an engineer half an hour to do, that's what I want. And to me, that's more important. Way more than important.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's the first question I ask. Does it,
We're talking about, the difference between what we want to do and how we want to do it. And HCI versus dedicated storage is all about how. What we want to do is build a nimble, automatable, API-driven data center.
Part of the challenge there, though, is that we still have all these Mode 1, Mode 2 applications, and then we have everything else that we're building.
Did you actually use Gartner?
I just use Gartner Speak. I can do...
I'm going to use you later.
Interviewing with him later.
All right.
But no, I'm saying, just real quick, just what I'm saying here is that you definitely have this kind of what we would consider everything that's like all the work we've done around ITIL, and then you have all the stuff that we're looking at doing around DevOps and that kind of mode of thinking.
Oh, did you just say DevOps? I
did say DevOps.
Drink.
Does anybody want to kick Gabe off the channel, off the panel?
I'm just saying that if I'm building new applications today, The key aspects that I want to build those around are going to be API-driven, automation-driven, and that's what's going to matter to me. And the people who have the purse strings to develop and deliver that stuff, they want solutions that do that. And if they don't do that, they're going to find it and download it themselves, or they're going to go to the public cloud.
Josh is dying to talk.
Talk, Josh.
I'm gonna drop the mic with this one. Not really. Don't worry, I won't break it. So if we all agree that regardless of what the infrastructure is that you're underlying and supporting your applications, that we care about extensibility through API-driven services, why does it matter what the infrastructure is at all?
We don't.
It's all about the management platform.
Customers don't care.
It depends who you are. If you're the guy who gets the call when it breaks, you care.
But if all it can do is CRUD, and that's it, and I can't deliver anything else out of it, then some APIs are better than others. Some APIs are very, very quick and agile and have a whole lot of functionality.
But I'm a customer. I really don't. I said it last year. I don't care about the hardware behind it. As long as it does the job and does it at the performance I want, I really don't care.
Our customer doesn't even know
Exactly.
they barely even know what we're running. They don't care. They're all developers.
And that's how it should be.
But it works,
Customers
and it
shouldn't
works
see
fast for me, and I don't have to wait to print my timesheet or my cat picture.
The cat picture
You know,
being important.
it works. All they care that it works and it's fast.
That's all that Reddit's
And
good
it's
for.
cheap.
Yeah, it's
Well, no, my users, they're consumers. For the business, because then I have to charge back.
Go ahead, Tim.
the API is for the business to make things happen and make them work functionally. The storage infrastructure, whether it's hyper-converged or all-flash arrays or what have you, it's all about delivering services on the back end, not necessarily integrating and making things happen with APIs, but delivering. Do I have enough capacity? Do I have enough performance? Is my stuff going to be protected and backed up? Can I get that stuff back in a reasonable time to meet my RTOs and RPOs? If I can't do that with that infrastructure, why are you even trying to automate against it if it's not going to meet your business needs?
If it's not extensible and leveraging APIs, you can't build those services effectively anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's any more questions from the audience, because we're going to be wrapping up here, what, 2 minutes? We can take one last question, or do we just pick somebody at random?
Anyone but Josh.
All right, we've got a gentleman. Oh, there we go. Give it to him.
So we talked earlier about HCI, and everything came down to scale, that when you get big enough, you don't want to do it because, well,
it's no longer cost effective.
How do you justify not going HCI for the small customers?
I
The
can't.
people that have no business running an array.
Can't.
And especially because the smaller people are going to realistically, most of the time, have fewer skills, or at least not as broad of skill set.
Yeah,
So it just
especially-
makes it easier because they don't have to be a storage god and a networking god and a compute god.
If
They
you've
just
got
need one.
under 50 or 100 VMs, HCI is the right architecture.
Yeah,
I,
it does.
I think everything should go HCI myself.
We know where your bread is buttered there, Tim.
I mean, we do great, as an industry in HCI into the small to medium. And that line at medium is getting bigger and bigger. We're getting deals, hundreds and hundreds of hosts worldwide integrating. And that's not just one, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, dozens of deals that are getting bigger and bigger with hyper-converged because people are seeing the value and integrating. And it's like, well, can you scale to 1,000 nodes? If you do it right, but who wants to put 1,000 nodes in one single fault
failure
domain?
domain.
Oh,
But also, for those
Scale it
organizations
right.
with lots and lots of locations, I mean, those small remote office, Robo is like the ultra, right? Like
Yeah.
if you got 50 offices, branch offices with 10 workers that need 10 VDI desktops, a file server, a print server, and some other low-hanging fruit there. If you're not doing, or you're not evaluating HCI, you're doing your company a disservice.
You've got 20 to 30 remote offices, and if you can put 2 nodes for high availability into each one of them, have everything protected and come back to a central repository, that's easy.
And
It makes a lot more sense than the client I had 20 years ago who decided to put 2 servers and an EVA in each of their 50 offices because they had
3-2-1,
EVAs in the data center and they wanted them all the same.
All right, folks, that is it. All we have time for. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to our panel for being here today.
We're going to close on that